All right, we are live streamed. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order our regular City Council meeting for November 16th, 2021. Crazy. Would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice
for all.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call, Sylvia.
Mayor Mays.
Here.
Council President Rosner.
Here.
Councilor Garland.
Here.
Councilor Grouse.
Here.
Councilor Young.
Here.
Councilor Griffin.
Here.
Councilor Scott.
Here.
I
Awesome.
think I heard you. Thank you.
Yep. He said here. We see him too.
I'm here.
Thank you, Sylvia. We have approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Kim and Russell. All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council. We have one item on the consent agenda this evening. It's just the approval of the November 2nd, 2021 City Council meeting minutes.
I move consent. Second.
Thank you, Renee and Kim. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to approve consent, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Council. Citizen comments, opportunity to address Council. In these days, it's in writing 24 hours in advance or more. And Sylvia, we have at least one comment.
That's correct. So Mayor and Council, this is comments received from Jane Van Kuren. Reading, Dear Mayor Mays and Council President Rosner, please recognize Shanda Hall for her thoughtful kindness and support of me as a City of Sherwood on-call recreational assistant with the routine vision correction procedure. I do not think that you know that I have 3 supervisors for my 3 very part-time jobs, one of whom is Shanda. I told these supervisors about my vision exam results and upcoming surgery yesterday. Here is what happened. Person 1 has not responded yet. Person 2 reminded me on the phone about February's schedule as an important sales month. No comment was made about me as an employee with a health problem. Person 3, Shanda, is responding today with kindness and encouragement about my routine vision correction surgery. She said via email, quote, "Thanks for letting me know. Please let me know if there are things we can do to be helpful as you go through this. Thank goodness for healthcare and good doctors and health insurance," unquote. Now, I am surprising her with requesting that she receive a commendation. If not feasible for the 11/16 council meeting, please read this letter into the record during citizen comment time. I shared with Shanda how much her thoughtful response meant to me on what might have been a challenging workday for her. Please let me know how you plan to handle this. I proudly live in Old Town Sherwood at 22550 Southwest Highland Drive, number 132 in Sherwood. Sincerely, Jane Van Kuren.
Thank you, Sylvia. Very nice of Jane to shout out to Shanda. That was awesome. New business is resolution 2021-096 approving Sherwood Police Department policy updates November 2021. Hi.
Thanks, Mayor and City Council. So I apologize. There's about a page and a half worth of them, so I'll go through them methodically, but as quickly as possible as well. These were all presented back on October 21st at the Police Advisory Board and were approved. And we're here today just to go over them. So I can stop after each one if that's easier, just to confirm that there's no questions. Or I guess we can raise our hand if you'd rather.
Yeah, go right ahead. And if folks have a question, they can stick their hand up and we can go that way and interrupt if they have a question, but otherwise just since we got a page and a half of them, I just plow through.
Okay, thank you. We'll start off with 303, and this all should be in your packet. So if you have any questions, again, let me know. Is the controlled device technique. This is really specific to riots and crowd control and the chemical incapacitants that won't be used, nor will sound devices, except for the communication. And then there's another sentence in there that if in fact we're involved in a riot, that will provide aid or allow EMTs to provide aid or try to accommodate individuals with disabilities when dispersing a crowd. 305, and this, I apologize, this was an lexical update as a result of House Bill 2928. A lot of these are going to be either Senate bill or House bill updates. 305, officer involved shooting and death. There is a better definition for the involved officer. It initially was the officer whose conduct resulted in the death. They've since added an officer whose conduct did not result in the death, but was either present before or during and reasonably likely exposed to more than minor degree of stress or trauma. And so that was added for that one. 306, firearms. This is a PD update. This was just an improvement on our own language, and this is regarding department issued firearms and our responsibility to keep ammo in a safe or in a vehicle or under the immediate control of an officer and not accessible to children. And then the second part of this is that a part of our accreditation is that we changed who oversees the range and firearms to a firearms instructor versus the support captain. 311 is domestic violence. This was another lexical update, Senate Bill 183. It just amended the law surrounding foreign courts. Basically, if it's entered into LEDs and it's out of state, that we can enforce it as long as it reasonably appears to be true and correct. 312 was search and seizure. That's another PD update. We simply added plain view as a part of the search, the exception to, or the exemption to search. And again, this was in compliance for OAA or Oregon Accreditation Alliance. And then 313, are we good? No questions? 313, temporary custody of juvenile. This was just some language, not a modification that was recommended by the Oregon Youth Development Division. 323 was standard of conduct. This was a lexical update. And this just added part of the bias to bring in gender identity. 401 was bias-based policing. This was just bringing in language regarding trading into compliance with OAA's best practice. And then 413, this was an immigrations violation. This is a House Bill 3265, and it actually ties into our temporary custody adults that we'll touch base with a little later. But this just amended existing laws and created new laws pertaining to the immigration and requiring agencies to notify individuals of certain rights after their detention. 422 is about medical marijuana. This is really this is a result of House Bill 3000, and this is changed the terms and definitions in the policy, and it was really specific to the hemp industry and its heavier regulations and ODA and OLCC's updates on that. And then 425 is homeless persons. It's another lexical update to conform to an emergency legislation regarding homelessness. It just adds new responsibilities with respect to homeless persons and their property, and it kind of went through and reorganized the content of that policy for us. We still good? Okay, we're on the back half of the page. 429, First Amendment assemblies. This is another emergency legislation, identification requests from public. So essentially, if there's any assembly and we're requested to provide either our name, badge number, or a unique identifier if practical, safe, and or tactically sound. 504 was the impaired driving lexical, House Bill 3140. This just added psilocybin to the list of substances which urine tests can be administered. And then 600 in investigation and prosecution. This is a Senate Bill 386, child witness procedures for interviewing. This is something that Washington County DA's office and the MDT generally sets the guidelines for, and we have until September 15th of 2022 to have those in line. And then 800 is property and evidence. We brought language into compliance with OAA, and this is regarding property and evidence audits. We were doing some monthly audits, and we, by best practices, only needed to do it annually on these unannounced spot inspections. 806 is protected information, another lexical update, just corrected some misidentification of a state agency, and I'm not quite sure which state agency they were referring to, but they fixed it for us. And then 900, this ties back into House Bill 3264, pertaining to immigration and requiring agencies to notify individuals of certain rights after their detention, as well as prohibiting immigration status requirements. Last two. 1000 is recruitment and selection, lexical updated to correct some of our grammatical and formatting errors. And then finally, 1017 is employee awards and recognition. This was an update we made because we are changing our awards to quarterly versus just annually. And that is it. So I hope, is there any questions? Hope I didn't go through that too fast.
Nope, I think you did great. Any questions for Ty?
I don't see any.
That's a big no. You're good. Discussion by council on the resolution. Is there a motion by a councilor on the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-096, approving Sherwood Police Department policy updates November 2021.
Second.
Thank you, Kim and Renee. Discussion on the motion.
I'd just like to chime in and thank the Police Advisory Board and all the others who staff and everyone who's worked on all these updates. And really the reason we don't have a lot to say is because all the hard work's been done and it's all been said, and the people that have gotten us here, including Ty and Jeff, and then the committee and everyone else have done such a great job. So thank you. And I'm really happy to see this before us.
Thank
You're
you.
here. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, it's important, as we've discussed prior meetings, prior years, to see the updates, to have a resolution to adopt the updates and have them be reviewed by our advisory committee. And so it's just completely transparent, and so people can know what's going on and know what changes we make and why. And sometimes they're just, it's part of tied to a state law, and it's there's stories behind each one, and that's good. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor of approving resolution 2021-096, approving Sherwood Police Department policy updates for November of 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ty. Thank you, council.
Thank you, Mayor.
Public hearings. This will be the long block of our meeting this evening, I suspect. We have 5 public hearings. Sylvia, shall we read what we need to read for all of them at once, or do you want to just take them one at a time? What would you like to do for your part of this?
Mayor, I can read the one statement and then I'll just separate it out, which the resolutions don't specifically apply similar to the ordinances.
Yep, great.
All right. So the Sherwood City Council will hold public hearings this evening to hear testimony on 5 different legislative items. Ordinance 2021-010, amending sections of the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code for residential design standards. This is the first hearing on this item. Ordinance 2021-011, adopting the Sherwood Economic Opportunities Analysis 2021 as a sub-element of the comprehensive plan. This is the first reading on this item. Ordinance 2021-012, amending the Sherwood Comprehensive Plan, Ordinance 1978-689, as amended to replace in its entirety the current comprehensive plan with updated comprehensive plan goals and policies. This is the first reading on this item. Resolution 2021-097, adjusting solid waste and recycling collection rates. And Resolution 2021-098, amending the city's fiscal year 2021-22 fee schedule. The public hearings this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present staff reports for each legislative item. Questions, if any, by the City Council for staff. We will then consider written testimony. And Mayor and Council, at this time, we have not received any testimony for any of the items listed. We will then close the public hearing, final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the council, followed by council discussion. This following statement is relevant to the first three ordinances under public hearing. This is the first hearing before the City Council on these three ordinances. Generally, the council will hold two hearings prior to making a decision. A second hearing on these items is currently scheduled for the December 7th meeting. However, in accordance with the city charter, the council reserves the right to make a decision at the close of this hearing by a unanimous vote of all city and council members. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Sylvia. So first is ordinance 2021-01, amending sections of the Sherwood Zoning Community Development Code for residential design standards. Joy.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Let me just get my PowerPoint up. Ooh. Can you guys all see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mays, and councilors. Joy Chang, Senior Planner with the Planning Department. I wanted to first let you know also, I've been experiencing unstable internet connection. So if you do lose me, I will log back in as soon as I can. So residential design standards. The City of Sherwood is proposing to adopt clear and objective criteria for residential design standards by amending the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code. The proposed standards would typically apply to all residentially zoned parcels submitting a new residential building permit. Through the Planning Commission and Council work sessions on these residential design standards, it was identified that the additional code amendments were also necessary to fully implement the proposed text amendments, and we'll be discussing these additional items further in the following slides. For many years, Sherwood Planning Commission had discussed the need for residential design standards, and House Bill 2001 created the avenue in providing those residential design standards as proposed. The necessity to develop residential design standards needs to be clear and objective as required by the House Bill 2001. And they also establish standards prior to housing choices that will be implemented next year by July 1st, 2022. The elements that are proposed, the residential design standards ensure that housing design maintains the context, scale, and compatibility with the Sherwood community. The standards focus on the following: entry location and orientation, garage and off-street parking areas, window coverage, minimum landscaping requirements in all residential zone, and other specific detailed design. Again, House Bill 2001 requires that all middle housing be reviewed through the same process and against the same standards as single detached dwellings. Therefore, staff proposes the following clear, objective residential design standards. Element one would be entry location in orientation as reflected on this slide. Element two are garages and off-street parking. with additional elements that are very specifically required for the garages and off-street parking as reflected on the slide. The third element is windows or entrances, and we are requiring that 15% be minimum area of the primary building elevation that's adjacent to a public right-of-way must include windows or entrance doors. And for side building elevations, typically those would be considered secondary that are adjacent to public right-of-ways or public access way. We're requiring a minimum of 10% of area is required. And the calculations through the work of Planning Commission, we have included window trims and shutters to be included within those percentages. So those are the three key elements. So then the other elements that are required, we need one element from each of these subcategories. So a porch entrance, entries and other offsets. Second, roof element. So there's a list of choices. 3 window elements. So three required elements from each of these one subcategories. And in addition to the slide previously, we're requiring additional 2 elements that consist of the previous slide and D and E of this slide. So another garage element and building materials could be chosen. So there ends up being a total of 8 elements that are would be required for each residential building permit that comes in. 3 required, and we required 3 from the subcategory from the previous slide, and 2 optional from a list of 5 elements. There are other design elements that we do provide where we basically said residential buildings should utilize durable and high quality exterior building materials that create a visually appealing facade. And that's why we are identifying prohibited materials that include aluminum, vinyl, and T11 siding. There's also limitation on parking and housing plan varieties that would be applicable to new residential subdivisions and townhome developments, so that there could be a variety of homes and they're not all uniform and look the same. Additional proposed amendments include, and again, all of these that are listed on the slides are from the work from the Planning Commission and Council's work sessions. That again, these are additional code amendments that were necessary to fully implement the proposed code amendments. And they include front yard landscaping standards, adjustments and variances to interior side yard setbacks, garage minimum design standards to assist in functionality, amendments to the plan unit development section 2, and also review by council that allows council to bring back a decision up. The very specific approval criteria for plan amendments are listed here on this slide, and I will highlight a couple of the ones that are very important to this proposal. I mean, they are all important, but definitely the ones that are impacting the proposal. One key is community need. It was again identified, as discussed before, that there is a need for residential design standards many, many years ago. It was identified that the adoption of residential design standards are part of the Sherwood 2040 project. We had 2 work sessions with council on the standards and agreed to move the standards forward. And the community's desire for residential design standards was reinforced through the visual preference survey and virtual open houses that we completed. And it will assist in implementing House Bill 2001 middle housing legislation. The City Council and Planning Commission have identified the need for these proposed amendments. In regards to citizen involvement, goal 1, public engagement, there's been several public engagement activities that allow for citizen involvement as reflected on this slide. We had an online visual preference survey. We had a virtual public open house workshop, and we had 2 in-person public open houses that occurred a Thursday evening and a Saturday morning. All of these were fairly successful in regards to public engagement. As noted on this slide, in addition to those public engagement efforts identified in the previous slide, the Planning Commission acted as the advisory committee for the project and have been worked diligently in implementation of the residential design standards. Since December 8th of 2020, there has been 15 Planning Commission work session on the residential design standards with opportunity for public involvement. Furthermore, City Council held 2 work sessions, briefings on the proposed standards with opportunity for public comment and involvement. The required notices were completed. We sent a notice to DLCD as required back in September. Email notice to Metro and agency partners also occurred in October. Newspaper publication was also completed through the local Times. We did receive a community comment from Matt Shui, Riverside Homes, David Weekly Homes, and also in-person open houses. In general, the concerns were the design guidelines and how they would be able to apply them. And also the aspect of them being too prescriptive. And the other key element was vesting and goal posting standards. And it basically, through City Council review or through City Attorney's review, it was identified that all preliminary land use subdivisions that have already gone through the land use process would be vested. And these residential design standards would not apply unless for some odd reason their residential preliminary subdivision approval expired. So that would be rare just because we do allow for extension. We've also worked and included additional design elements as far as choices for the development community so that it can be easier for them to apply the standards to their proposed homes. Sherwood Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 26th, and the commission recommended approval to City Council for the proposed text amendments as reflected in the council's meeting packet. And that concludes my verbal staff report and can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Joy. Questions for Joy? Doug.
More of a clarification than a question. So, you know, as the liaison of the Planning Commission, I've, sit on both sides of these meetings. I just wanted to clarify with you and have you clarify that we did a lot of that feedback that you mentioned we received from particularly the builders and developers came quite some time ago, and there's been multiple work sessions and public hearings since that time, and that input led to changes in the final code. So I don't know that was super clear, and I want to just make sure that everyone's aware of that. Would you agree, Joy?
Awesome.
Yes, I do agree with that. And we did update, there is an actual web page for the residential design standards, and all of the amendments and all of the revisions have been updated through that web page. And we also send notice to our listservs for all the individuals that wanted to get insights in regards to this project.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Joy. Tim, you've you've lost your hydraulics in your chair or something.
Oh,
But
no, I
Just
moved
calling Tim's hair.
sorry. I sat down, I was standing. It wasn't nothing to do with hydraulics, but good guess. Anyways, thank you very much, Joy, for the presentation and all the hard work by staff and the Planning Commission, if you're watching. I had a quick question on the, you referenced the, Josh, our city attorney, researched the kind of safe harbor for existing subdivisions that are approved. Does that just apply to, I can see why they'd be concerned about that for like their plat design, you know, and stuff like that with the subdivision, but does that just apply to those types of issues? Does that safe harbor apply to like interior things, like making sure that the garage is usable and those types of things?
So, Josh, the city attorney reviewed the subdivision vesting rights and determined that ORS 92.040 would apply for the proposed residential design standards. So construction of a subdivision would only be subject to the code in place at the time of the subdivision application, unless the subdivision approval expires first. And so the amendments in regards to the garage functionality is part of the package that we have. So they would not be subject to it if they've already received preliminary subdivision approval. And in this case, both David Weekley and Riverside Homes, and in addition, Middlebrook subdivision, those have all received preliminary approvals, and they would not be subject to them.
Okay, no, that good. I want to make sure of that. And for anyone listening, one of the reasons we're interested in making sure that garages are functional is because the state of Oregon and Metro put a lot of restrictions on the city in terms of requiring on-premise parking, and which is leading to a lot of our parking challenges in our subdivisions. And for anyone who goes into some of the neighborhoods in Portland, you can see the problems that they're having out there. So we want to, the state and Metro require that we count garages as parking spots. So we want to make sure that they're usable and they're not putting like steps or HVAC equipment in the garages in a way that would prohibit their use. So that's why we're thinking about those things. And thank you very much, Joy. Appreciate it.
yeah, thanks, Joy. Spencer, question for you, not necessarily today, but before the next meeting. The vesting rights question would not apply, is my assumption, but I want you to confirm or whatever, on any existing development. If middle of next year, when there is this new middle housing law that goes into effect, if they want to utilize the benefits of that, then they would also have to utilize our new design standards, correct?
Yes. So without having the benefit of looking at the language, the specific local language that Josh looked at when he got this answer to Joy, what I will say is that if somebody comes back in, the general rule for vested rights is if somebody comes back in for any kind of a modification after they have a vested right, and they ask for a modification, they ask for any kind of change that requires modifying the approval that was granted, that triggers the current standards that are in place as of the day that request comes in. So to your question, if they're doing that with, if the middle housing statutes trigger that desire on the part of an applicant, they're going to need to evaluate that against what they have vested against what they might get by seeking a modification.
And do they technically need to make a modification if they've got a single family lot and they want to do something different than a single detached unit? Well,
so if it's an outright, if you're talking about a development, let's say you're talking about a planned development that has kind of benefits like density transfers and things of that nature, where you're kind of granting exceptions to otherwise applicable code provisions. Yes, if they're just talking about developing a single residential unit in and as an outright permitted use in a facility? Not necessarily, no.
So before the next meeting, and because I'm not going to want an answer today, but in the example I give, we as a 50 or 100 unit project goes through the system, and they're, it's all gridded out that way. And then July of next year, or whenever the middle housing law goes into effect, they want to take now this new plotted lot and they want to submit a house plan that is a fourplex or something. I want to know specifically in an email if they then must use these new proposed design standards if they're adopted by council at the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, I'll look at that.
Other questions for Joy or Spencer? Tim, your hand's up.
It's up, but I don't have a question.
Awesome. Any other questions for Joy or staff? Okay, we'll close the public hearing portion of this meeting today. It is the first of 2 readings, unless council wants to do it in one, which I do not expect. I'm not agreeable to that, so we don't need to worry about that, I guess. Any other general comments that members of council want to make on the proposed ordinance before we go to the next proposed ordinance? Scott, Doug, sorry.
Just general comments. This is work that really has a genesis going back many years. This has been we've had design standards for commercial and industrial development in Sherwood for years and years. We've never had residential design standards. It's been a desire of many people and the staff, and certainly on planning commission for a very long time, to develop residential design standards. It is also a goal in the Sherwood 2040 comp plan that we'll be talking about later this evening as well. And finally, this particular iteration, while it is coming along and it's somewhat ahead of and in very loose relationship to HB 2001, it actually is something we could have and should have done a long time ago, irregardless of House Bill 2001. And there's a lot of history and there's a lot of work behind it. And this particular iteration, I think the Planning Commission has been working on with staff and consultants for, gosh, probably a year now, maybe over a year. It's been a while. And there's been hours and hours and hours and countless amount of public outreach, as Joy touched on earlier, and a lot of feedback and a lot of really diligent and very detailed conversations that has led us to this place. So I'm really excited about it. It's something that's long overdue. I think it's really important for us to have minimum design standards on everything that gets built in Sherwood, and so I'm excited about that. And I think this is a great starting point. And obviously, it's the first version of it. Things will get modified over time as we learn from it, but yeah, I think the Planning Commission and staff and consultants did a lot of good work here, and I'm really proud of that. So I definitely encourage adoption.
Awesome. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, a lot of work, a lot of good work, a lot of outreach, and yeah. With that, we'll hear this again in first meeting in December and move on to our next public hearing item is ordinance 2021-011, adopting the Sherwood Economic Opportunities Analysis 2021 as a sub-element of the comprehensive plan. Erica?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight before you have the final draft of the Economic Opportunities Analysis. So the document was originally prepared in 2019, and it was not adopted at that time. Council looked at it in 2019 and directed staff to come back to it as we got closer to the adoption of the comprehensive plan. So we went back to the document and updated it for the new planning year period, which is 2021 to 2041. And I'm going to quickly go over the highlights of the document here and touch on state requirements, touch on the buildable lands inventory, the new employment forecast, and some of the key findings and conclusions. So State Land Use Goal 9 requires Sherwood to provide adequate opportunities for economic activities. This really means that we need to provide job lands, and those lands include industrial, office, commercial, and retail commercial. So as part of Goal 9, we need to identify employment lands for the 20-year planning period. And then we also need to review existing conditions and forecasted future conditions. And the EOA really informs our economic development goals and policies and identifies any land deficits that we may have and helps coordinate opportunities for new employment opportunities. So the commercial and industrial buildable lands inventory, which is in the document, it has a whole methodology associated with it. So first we start with Metro's BLI, and then we inventory all of our commercial and industrial tax lots, including those in Tonkin and Brookman. And then we classify those tax lots into vacant and potentially redevelopable. And then we remove any land with constraints from the inventory, and those constraints consist of wetland areas, slopes greater than 25%, and stream corridors. So this is the BLI map that is in the current analysis. So it shows us that within Sherwood, we have a total of 249 unconstrained buildable acres for employment areas. And what we did here with the BLI map from the difference between 2019 and now is that on this map, we have indicated those parcels that we anticipate developing after June of this year, or that are currently under development. So our employment growth forecast in this updated updated EOA shows that we are projecting a 1.42 average annual growth rate, which is about roughly 3,000 new employment jobs in Sherwood over the 20-year planning period. And remember, this is just a forecast. The growth rates, essentially could be higher than that as we continue to really implement our economic development goals and policies around job creation in Sherwood. So how much growth are we planning for? So in the 20-year planning period, the forecast shows that by 2041, Sherwood will have just over 12,000 employees, which is an increase of about 3,000 new jobs. We are stating in this table here that we're going to see more growth in our industrial land use designations. So in 2021, we are at 28%, and by 2041, we are at 34%. So you can see those changes on this table. And so what does that mean? So since we are seeing more land or more employment opportunities in our industrial land designations, we're seeing we'll have more employees, which consumes more land. So over the 20-year planning period, the EOA suggests that we'll have a land deficit of 8 acres within the current city boundary for our industrial land designation, and office and commercial services, a 35 acre deficit. But we do have land in Tonkin and our Brookman areas that will help with our industrial and commercial needs. And I'm just going to talk about on our next slide here how that associates with site needs. So right now, Sherwood, we don't have any commercial sites larger than 10 acres within city limits. The Current EOA shows 42 acres on sites between 50 or shows 42 acres on sites between 10 and 50 acres. And in planning for employment uses, it's really important to make sure that there are appropriate sites for employment needs. So employment needs, are very different companies that need different acreages and they need different site needs. So looking into the future, here over the next 20 years, there's a likely need that we'll have a shortage of appropriate sites if the rate continues to grow as our forecast projects. So with that, there could be a need to look at Sherwood West for appropriate land sites for employment development. So our existing economic conditions, Sherwood's medium income is well above the comparable cities in the Portland region. Sherwood's wages are below average for the region of the nearby cities, and more people commute out of Sherwood to work. Our potential growth industries in Sherwood include, manufacturing, clean tech, wholesale, professional and business services, services for visitors, including tourism or wine industry, and then also services for residents, which include those professional services, medical, financial. So a bit of our conclusions here. So within the current city boundary over the next 20 years, the EOA shows a shortage of 8 acres for industrial and also a deficit of 35 acres for office commercial. Sherwood has enough employment land to accommodate for these in the Tonkin employment and Brookman area, but if the rate of development increases, there will be a likely shortage of appropriate sites, and those are sites of 10 acres or more. From 2019, we are seeing, a decrease of our buildable acres. We went from 309 acres to 249 acres. So we are seeing that right now, about 60 acres of land is now being developed or in the process of developing for employment needs in Sherwood. And as we continue to think about our economic needs, we need to really address our infrastructure needs in the Tonkin employment area to align with our infrastructure needs. Our code and moving forward really should think a bit about being flexible for employment uses. And then of course, we should continue to work with our partners and really identify opportunities for supporting our businesses that currently exist here in the city. So the Planning Commission held a public hearing on this on October 26th. They had some recommended changes in the EOA, and those are reflected in the ordinance this evening. And this, I'm not going to go over all of them, but this is what the slide represents. We did route the EOA and notice it to all of our affected agencies in September. We had a public notice in the Times and noticed it in 5 places around town. And we haven't received any written public comments in regards to the EOA. And so with that, I see that Council President Rosner has a question.
First, we'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting. There was no public comment for this. Tim.
Thanks. And Erica, thanks for putting this all together for us. I really appreciate it. And just a clarification and a question, when you mentioned that Sherwood has lower wages than the surrounding community, surrounding areas, you're talking about the jobs in Sherwood, not the folks that live here.
Oh, yes, currently, because we have a lot of service sector jobs in Sherwood. Yes, right. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, and then just a comment. These economic needs analysis are really interesting because they're very prescriptive in terms of how we do it. And so sometimes those forecasts because they're based on the past and based on the constraints we're under today, don't really truly reflect what we think might happen going forward, especially with our recent focus on economic development and some of the new projects and jobs that we're already bringing to Sherwood, like with the move of Lamb Research, putting a manufacturing facility in Sherwood, which is great news. But as it's just another comment, I was looking at the census on the map data, and they just updated their data to 2019, and we've actually gotten worse in Sherwood. We only have 500 of our goals is to make it easier for people to live and work here, and that means bringing jobs to Sherwood that make sense and are compatible with our community and our lifestyles here. So just some comments on that.
Thanks, Tim. Other questions or comments for Joy? Joy, for Erica. Sorry, Erica.
It was okay.
Did we make any changes to the report since we saw it over a year ago?
So
like all the data's old.
yeah, so the main changes to the report included the employment forecast, the table showing that we expect more development in our industrial zone lands based on what we're currently seeing now. Those were the two primary changes, and of course our BLI. So we updated it to reflect, the current annexations in the Tonkin employment area and the development that's occurring now. And we continue to monitor the BLI. Staff will over the next, upcoming years, because it's a great tool to really help us inform whether or not our economic development policies are working.
And how frequently and how difficult when we do, how frequently should we update this horrible report? And how difficult is that? And what does it cost to do that?
Best practice is really to update EOA every 5 years. The cost is going to depend on whether or not you want to do a full-blown new EOA, or if you're just going to be updating certain sections.
So, all right. Great. Thanks. Yeah. I'm not a fan of this thing, so yeah, I'm trying to be nice. It's not your fault. It's state and metro.
Hey, Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah, Russell.
I was gonna raise my hand, but sorry.
All right.
Hey, Erica, in the report or in your presentation tonight, it said that we don't have any lots inside the city limits that are greater than 10 acres, designated for like future light industrial. What are they looking for? I mean, what is that small? Is that we need 12? Do we need, how big of a lot size do we need to attract a big fish? Or what's the standard? I mean, we have that huge thing, Trammell Crow just went in, that's completely different, but do you have any sense for that at all?
Honestly, I don't, companies, all different companies have different site needs.
Yeah.
One company, might want, 20 acres that they can, subdivide into, a 10-acre lot or 2 10-acre lots, depending on what their needs are. It's always kind of nice to have a variety, yes, of lots that companies can pick and choose from.
Okay, thanks. I'll email Bruce, and say, find out what he knows. So thank you. That's it.
Anybody else? All right. Thanks, Erica. Yes, anybody ever watches this, read this great report and understand that prime example of the dysfunction of the state and metro. So again, I'm just ranting because it really bugs me.
Can I just add to that, Keith?
Yep, go ahead.
For those that are interested in this stuff out there, these reports, the process that we have to follow is very prescriptive from the state. And you could, if you're being very cynical, you could say it's designed to get a certain outcome in terms of how they set up the rules around these things. But in general, they're not really good predictors of what's actually happening in our communities, and you have to take them with a grain of salt.
Yep. Doug.
Yeah, just to pile on, I kind of think of these as wasteful and expensive box checking exercises.
Well said.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And then,
But just to be clear, this is not our staff or the city staff's issue. This is the requirements that state and metro put on us. And just want to be really clear. I appreciate all the hard work the staff goes through putting these reports together and working with our consultants. But
absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. But the insanity of how underdeveloped jobs land is determined, and what land that is deemed ready for redevelopment is just really frustrating. But let's move on. The next public hearing is ordinance 2021-012, amending the Sherwood Comprehensive Plan Ordinance 1978-689 as amended to replace in its entirety the current comprehensive plan with updated comprehensive plan goals and policies. Erica.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight before you is our final draft of the new city's comprehensive plan with updated goals and policies. This has been a work in progress. This is about 3 years in the making. And I really just want to take the time to thank the Sherwood community that has participated in this process. We've had a dedicated community advisory committee. We had a technical advisory committee. We had people participating on, through surveys and online open houses. And we couldn't get through this project without the community. So I just want to give a big thank you to everyone. And then also a thank you to 3J Consulting, Sarah Architects, and Enviro Issues that have kind of helped facilitated this process along the way. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Anais Mate, who's here with us tonight, who has really helped us through this process. Anais.
Thank you, Erica. Can everybody hear me? Yes, great. Good evening, Mayor Mays and council members. Thank you for hosting us this evening. Pleased to present the first hearing for the city's new comprehensive plan update. Of course, a huge thank you to all of you as a commission or as a council and all the various roles that you've placed on this project and your staff, of course, who have worked really hard on this over the years. So quick short presentation. We're going to give a recap of the adoption process, as well as a recap of what we've done, where we've been, what we've heard. I'll touch on some of the key milestones and activities for each of the comp plan's 6 core areas, and then we can answer any questions at the end. Great. So we began with a series of work sessions in June of 2021 this year with Planning Commission. Your commission reviewed the document in great detail and provided really excellent revisions for an updated draft that we shared with you all at a joint work session in September. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 26th. The commission recommended some minor formatting and editorial changes to wording, as well as an amendment to the Goal 10 finding to address one testimony. After all of these revisions were incorporated, the Planning Commission voted to recommend the proposed Sherwood 2040 comp plan to City Council. So tonight is an opportunity to ask any final questions or provide any thoughts or reflections on the comp plan and its process. So recapping the process, the overall comp plan project actually started with its separate community-wide visioning process, which began back in 2017. The vision itself, or the visioning exercise itself, was really critical in exploring the community's priorities for integration into new goals and policies in the comp plan. That was actually the next slide, Erica. Thank you. Yeah, so that was really instrumental in developing the comp plan framework. The process reached hundreds of community members. It developed a framework for the new comprehensive plan. It was guided by a community advisory committee and was adopted by City Council in January 2019. So once the vision was adopted, the comp plan process was underway. This began in spring 2019 and it was completed in spring of this year. Throughout both the course of the vision and the comp plan, the city also undertook a number of additional technical work, such as the HNA and the EOA, as well as work on an updated Parks and Trails master plan and other studies. So quickly, to develop the actual comp plan document, we developed an iterative, flexible, and dynamic process that was grounded in the visioning statement. So each of the 6 comp plan blocks began with the development of background information. This was presented to a community advisory committee, as well as a technical advisory committee, as well as planning commission. And then outreach to the community was conducted around some key policy questions that arose through that background information and related to the topics at hand for that block. An online engagement activity accompanied each outreach event, and all of this was brought back to the CAC and the TAC, who worked to draft goal language and policy ideas that were presented at a joint planning commission and city council meeting at the end of the block. So this, we repeated it every time throughout for each of the blocks. I will note that in addition to a CAC and a TAC, this process also engaged a project advisory team, which comprised of 2 planning commissioners and 2 city councilors. This was formed by city council to help guide community engagement activities throughout the entire update process. And now we are in the adoption process, which began with a series of work sessions this summer in June. So thriving and diversified economy. I'll quickly walk through each of these 6 blocks and some of the high level activities that happen in each of these to just remind ourselves of how all of this content was developed. So the topic here covered was economic development, of course. Thriving and diversified economy touches on goal 9, economic development. This block was first because it lined up with the development of your EOA and the economic development strategy, which identified some basic goals, policies, objectives, and actions based on Sherwood's economic needs and priorities. So recognizing that a lot of work had already been done here, this was the first theme area that we approached in the comp plan process. For this specific element, we did a lot of targeted outreach to community members that primarily focus on economic development activities, both locally within the city, but also more regionally. Some key questions that we asked were, what should the city's role be in retaining existing businesses, in attracting new businesses? How and where should the city prioritize improvements for employment growth? Feedback was gathered through this outreach as well as through an online survey, and this was reviewed through multiple iterations with your CAC, your TAC, PAT, as well as a review from your planning commission and this council. Strong community culture and heritage was the next block. This, I think, was the one block that was the least land use focused. The topics that are covered in this theme center on public engagement, historic and cultural resources, public and civic and cultural spaces. This ties in with goal 1, a portion of goal 5, and a portion of goal 11. So for this theme area, we participated in the Sherwood Arts Walk to target outreach to community members, primarily focused on engagement, outreach, arts, history, and heritage. Planning staff also held interviews with members of the Sherwood Cultural Arts Commission, the Friends of the Center for the Arts, the Sherwood Foundation for the Arts, the Sherwood Historical Society, among others, as well as updates to the Chamber of Commerce and meeting with the city's volunteer coordinator and library staff to get a good sense of how community members want to participate in city planning and decision-making, what elements of Sherwood's history and heritage should the city protect or enhance, and what types of facilities or services or events should the city host or help build a sense of, or help build in Sherwood. So all of this input was received from these stakeholders, provided a lot of insight to the team on the development of the draft goals and policies for this theme area. Strategic and collaborative governance. So this theme focused on two key topic areas. One is urbanization and growth management, and the second, community health and safety. So this touched on goal 2, goal 7, a portion of goal 11, and goal 14. We had a community open house that took place the week before COVID hit. So we were lucky to get this in. And we gathered input and explored some key policy questions around these topic areas. We talked about, given how Sherwood's urban growth areas have been planned for, are we on the right track for promoting and balancing a need for jobs and housing? How should the city consider or review annexation requests? What are the ways in which we can improve the health and safety of our communities? And also, what does a resilient community look like? So that's just a spattering of some of the questions that your CAC and your TAC and the broader community grappled with in the development of the goals and policies for this topic area. The next one was housing. Here, the city benefited from an updated housing needs analysis. Your CAC led some targeted outreach to a variety of community members that primarily focus on housing development, housing access, housing affordability, both within the city limits, but also across the region. In addition, we also deployed a housing preferences survey. So this was a visual preferences survey that helped kind of uncover some community priorities related to design and aesthetics. In addition, we also supplemented this theme with some in-depth interviews with community members to develop a housing snapshot, which ended up being more of a visual display or storytelling of what some different housing experiences are in Sherwood. An online survey was developed to review some of the policy concepts around housing, and this all was reviewed by your PAT, CAC, TAC, as well as Planning Commission and City Council. My apologies, it looks like the text on the screen is a little wonky, so it looks a little different on my end, so sorry about that. Second to last, coordinated and connected infrastructure. Here, the topics included transportation, public facilities and services, water and sewer and stormwater, so public utilities, as well as a bit on energy. So this touched goal 12, goal 11, and goal 13. Once again, we focused on doing high quality targeted outreach to local agency partners, utility providers, city departments, and all other service providers. We also provided an online survey to review policy concepts, and this was reviewed through multiple iterations with your PAT, CAC, TAC, Planning Commission, and your City Council. And then last but not least, healthy and valued ecosystems. This theme area was really focused on parks and recreation, natural resources, energy, watersheds, habitat. It was greatly supported by your recently adopted Parks and Trails Master Plan. So all of the goals and policies that you see in that plan are directly incorporated into the comp plan. So there's parity now between those two new documents. We also did some targeted outreach to the Tualatin River watershed, Oregon Department of State Lands, Clean Water Services, et cetera, to understand kind of the key trends around some of these topic areas affecting Sherwood. This was all reviewed by the CAC as well as the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the TAC, and then of course reviewed with you, City Council, as well as your Planning Commission.
So moving on to the review criteria. This slide shows all the review criteria that has been addressed in the staff report this evening. I'm not going to go through each and every statewide planning goal or other applicable Oregon administrative rules that apply, but here they are on screen, and we have addressed them this evening through the staff report. We did notice the comp plan to our affected agencies in September, including DLCD. We noticed the comp plan in accordance with the Sherwood Zoning and Community Development Code. And we did receive one joint comment from the Housing Land Advocates and Fair Housing Council of Oregon. And their main concern is that the city is not considering the most direct method of meeting its housing obligations, either through upzoning or increasing densities. And this comp plan update is not a map amendment. We're just laying out future policy direction to address our needs, ensuring that we are going in the right direction based on the community input that we have received. And then we also, updated the Goal 10 finding to really include that we are anticipating meeting our housing need through continued annexations through Brookman, and anticipating a Metro UG request in the future. So with that, we can hopefully answer any of your questions, or if you have any final thoughts.
Thanks, Erica. Questions for Erica or Annis? Only took 4 years. Can you believe it? Yes, important that we got it done. Painful, if not excruciating, that it took 4 years. But if you talk to other people, we did it in record time.
I will say that Sean and I have been from the beginning to the end.
Lucky duo. Yeah, another example of, I don't want to know what the total bill was on this whole thing. It was horrendous. And we still have additional work to do. Good that we're at this point. Look forward to adopting in a couple weeks. Any questions amongst ourselves? We closed the public hearing portion of this first reading. Like that clear. And there was no new testimony beyond the joint letter from a couple of people who didn't know what they were doing. Sean.
Yeah, I'll just say, I just really want to thank everybody for the hard work that they've done on this. Like Kim said, we've been at this for a while, and I was joking with our city manager earlier today. I think the last comprehensive plan was last approved when I was in high school, and I'm 48. So I think it's time that we get this approved. And so I'm really happy to have something that's a little bit more modern and up to date. So really just wanted to thank all the committees that we had. We kind of mentioned them in here, and these are citizen volunteer committees, people who have taken time away from their life, their family, to purely volunteer to help build the future of Sherwood. I'll get on my soapbox a little bit higher here, and I'll say that occasionally we do hear from people who think they know what's best for the city and how to plan for a city and the way that we should do it, and are quick to tell us what we're doing wrong. So I really appreciate the people who did step in and help to guide us in the right direction, provide their input. I sat in on some of the early meetings, but I have not been involved in those lately, but I'm sure that there was probably a lot of input, good, bad, all along the way, and I'm glad for everybody who did that. So thanks for everybody who helped get us here. That's it.
Well said. Thank you, Sean.
Very well said.
All right. Doug.
Just to dovetail onto that, there are currently openings on several of our city boards and commissions. So it's a great opportunity to get involved and help shape the future of the town you live in and love, instead of complaining about it later when someone else does it. So please check out on the SherwoodOregon.gov website. There's lots of opportunities. Thank you.
Outstanding. Yep. Great. So we'll see this again in a couple weeks of the first meeting in December. Thank you again, staff, Erica and Denise from 3J or J3 something. Next on the public hearings, resolution 2021-097, adjusting solid waste and recycling collection rates. Craig.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to start by saying solid waste and recycling services in Sherwood are provided by Pride Disposal, which is a private company and a franchisee issued through the Sherwood Municipal Code. City Council sets the rates that the franchise holder charges for services in Sherwood. Most cities in Washington County aim to set a reasonable composite rate of return of 8 to 12% annually for their solid waste franchises. We have that similar language in our municipal code. Pride Disposal did submit its 2020 financial information for the code. The city did hire Bell and Associates to conduct a rate review and issue a report from a third party. Pride Disposal's adjusted rate of return for 2020 ranged from 9.04% to 15.74%, depending upon the type of collection services, with a composite roll rate of return of 11.22%. City Council had work sessions on September 7th of 2021 and October 5th of 21, where Bell and Associates presented the information and provided a recommendation to City Council to raise the solid waste and recycling rates by 75% of the consumer price index as outlined in the Sherwood Municipal Code. Also, during those conversations, a recommendation was made to raise the rate disposal $8.40 per ton, which is a Metro disposal cost pass-through that went into effect July 1 of 2021. And that increase was for taxes assessed by Metro for all solid waste disposed within the Metro service boundary. Staff recommends City Council approve of the resolution 2021-097, adjusting the solid waste and recycling rates starting January 1st, 2022.
Thanks, Craig. Questions for Craig? Great job, Craig. So fair and reasonable. I think our franchise Pride Disposal does a great job for our community. It's great that the business is located in our community. They give back to our community as an effort to show, the efficiencies that they run, as well as the benefit of better pricing on recyclable materials. It's a fraction of the CPI, and it's passed through of all the new taxes and fees that Metro just loves to impose on our community. So while we hate to raise them, it's not our choice. Metro controls that. So great job all the way around with this proposed resolution, and kudos to our hauler, Pride Disposal, for all they do to keep things humming along efficiently and professionally. Tim.
Yeah, I just want to add on a little bit for those that are listening. We do watch Metro pretty closely when they're proposing increases to their tipping fees and the taxes that they pass through. There's very little oversight with Metro, with the community, in terms of when and how they do that. So we do pay attention to that. And it was last year about this time that we had some rather entertaining work sessions with Metro staff over this very issue, trying to encourage them and electeds not to raise the rates as much as they decided to do in the middle of a pandemic. But they did, and that's why we're here tonight, having to raise our rates a little bit so we can meet the letter of our code and our responsibilities to our hauler. So just a little background for folks who are listening.
Thanks, Tim.
I'll just add that while there's not a lot of discussion tonight, we did already hold 2 work sessions on this topic. So if the community is interested in how we got to the rate increases and the approval of, once we vote and approve, there are 2 work sessions on this. Thanks, Craig, for all that work, and
yes,
thank you
very much.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions with staff or amongst ourselves, or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-097, adjusting solid waste and recycling collection rates.
Second.
Thank you, Kim and Renee. Discussion on the motion. Tim's got his hand up, but I don't think it's to ask a comment on the motion.
That is correct.
All in favor of approving resolution 2021-097, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thank you, Craig. Item E is resolution 2021-098, amending the city's fiscal year 2021-22 fee schedule. David?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm going to bring forth in front of Council just a few amendments to the fee schedule. Back in October, we all learned that the commercial water rates were not raised July 1st as they have been in years past. So we're proposing a 3% increase on commercial water rates. And the second amendment to the fee schedule with the growth of Sherwood broadband, the broadband director is proposing to increase the in lieu of fee for fiber optic conduit installation from $30 to $45. And then also adding in a fee in lieu of fee for vault placement at $700 per vault. And then the last amendment is under plumbing permits. There was just the wrong amount put in the water lines for each additional 100 feet or fraction thereof. It was listed at 6102. That number was just carried down from the line above. It actually should have read 33.57. So with that, those are the three changes that I am recommending for approval tonight, amending the city's fiscal year 21-22 fee schedule. And with that, I'm open for questions, and I have all the directors on the line so they can answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Questions for David?
When would these go into effect?
They would go in effect immediately, but I know in terms of the water rates, Craig was going to provide notice to the commercial, basically commercial customers, and make them effective January 1st.
Thank you.
January 1st, 2022.
Tim?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, David, for bringing this forward. For those that are listening, could you explain the conduit and the vault fees and who pays those and kind of where they show up? I'm sure there's a lot of people in the community that may not understand where those apply.
Yeah, I'll have Brad jump in. I know that's for Sherwood broadband, so he's on the line. So Brad, I'll let you take that on over.
Yeah, those fees only apply to development that happens in town, and they only apply when the developer does not wish to put those conduits in on the city's behalf. Multitude of reasons of why that could be. Maybe they're not doing work in the road, therefore they decide to pay a fee in lieu for not putting those that infrastructure in. So it's primarily a developer fee.
Okay. Thank you, Brad. David.
Other questions? Comments? Motions? A little game of chicken. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2021-098, amending the city's fiscal year 2021-22 fee schedule.
Second.
Thank you, Kim and Renee. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving resolution 2021-098, amending the city's fiscal year 2021-22 fee schedule, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is city manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor.
Keith.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to start by giving Chief Growth an opportunity to hop in, and I see him coming on. So Chief, take it away, please.
Thanks, Keith. As Mayor and Council, I just wanted to give you a quick sneak preview. As Ty was going through the policy updates, you'll recall he mentioned OAA, the Oregon Accreditation Alliance, and you saw that term in several of those updates, which is what reminded me. So we just completed our most recent on-site assessment for reaccreditation, and very happy to be able to report to you that we passed our reaccreditation process. So as you recall, quick history lesson, we were first accredited in 2012. The process requires reaccreditation every 3 years. And every 3 years, there needs to be new proofs and new evidence that you're maintaining the standards. And the standards are constantly updated based on changes in best practice and laws and so on and so forth. So then, of course, in 2015, we were reaccredited. Then again, in 2018, we were reaccredited. And so then now 2021 is the fourth reaccreditation for your police department. So I anticipate that there'll be a more formal presentation that Ty will facilitate sometime after the first year with a representative from the Oregon Accreditation Alliance. And as you may or may not know, the Oregon legislature took the very progressive step during this last session to begin the process of requiring accreditation for police agencies in the state of Oregon. And it's phased in with the bigger agencies being required first, and then so on and so forth. Don't know how far down that's going to expand, but anyway, so again, as you have grown accustomed to, Sherwood PD is ahead of the ball or ahead of the game on that. So anyway, just like I said, sneak peek, just wanted to let you know that that very proud of our staff for getting that done. Angie Hass is our accreditation manager, and Ty Hanlon works very closely with her to make sure and get this taken care of. So that's all I had. Thank you.
That's great news. Great job, Chief, you and your team.
Thanks, Chief. With Chief Growth bringing that up, we want to mention that he has announced his retirement. And so with that, I want to announce tonight that as we're looking to the transition, that we will be appointing Ty Hanlon as the interim police chief. Chief Growth will be moving into an advisory role and will be helping with the city with the transition and to help on some special projects as he finishes out the time. So I'd like to take this time to acknowledge Chief Growth in his 32 years of public service, 14 years of it with the police department, and thank him very much and wish him well. While he's not leaving, just wanted to take this opportunity as we take this next transition. We are working with Prothman, who's a national recruiting firm, to do a national search that is currently ongoing. And so as we continue with that process and prepare for the next step, this transition will allow us to continue to move forward and be ready as the process for our national search will continue into early next year. So with that, Chief Growth, thank you, and happy to recognize your service to our community.
Yeah, here. Is this transition taking place now, tonight, in the morning, next week, next month? When's that, did it happen yesterday? What's the deal?
So we're moving forward now. Chief Growth is here tonight as we do the transition and wanted to announce it tonight publicly to let everyone know where we were. We've announced it to the city staff this afternoon, so wanted to bring it forward here tonight and to let Chief Growth have a moment to recognize his service to our community. And hopefully we can get him to come to the December 6th meeting, but I can't.
Yes. Okay, yes, hopefully that'll be the case. Chief, you know how much you're loved and respected and appreciated by your city council, city staff, the community as a whole. We couldn't have asked for a better chief. We were blessed to have you as long as we did. And we still hope to see you in a future meeting before the end of the year. We wish you only the very best in the days and years and decades ahead, with future adventures with your family and friends. Thank you. And fourth accreditation in a community size communities that don't get accredited, that alone is, an example of how super awesome you are. But there's a long list of all that, and thankfully we've, it's been covered in some press releases and some nice stories in the paper, and And we'll have to maybe raise a glass of soda or iced tea in the very near future before you fully transition to your next abode.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Ty, congratulations. You're still on the line. You're hidden, but on being our interim. We had nothing to do with who gets picked as this post, but we know you're going to do a fantastic job, and was a very good choice on Keith's part. So congratulations, interim police chief or acting police chief. What title did you? What title has he been given, Keith?
Interim is what we're classifying it as.
All right, interim.
Intern or interim?
Yeah, that's a good clarifying question. Interim.
Interim. Okay, just kidding, Ty.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor.
You're very welcome. Great job. What else, Keith?
I guess I will serve as sort of town crier. Our city attorney, Josh, is not here. I've been in communication with him, and I'm happy to report that him and his family are at home celebrating the birth of their daughter, Rowan Fern. So my understanding is that everyone is doing great and happy at home. So thrilled for him, and just wanted to publicly announce that to everybody. So it's wonderful news. Wishing him and his family the best.
Outstanding news. Outstanding news. Okay, what else?
And with that, Mayor, I will turn over the time, and thank you.
Any questions for Keith? Did everyone jot down that name? Rowan Fern. Cool. All right, no one has questions for Keith. You're getting off easy, but any questions for his team? Hearing none, council announcements.
None for me tonight.
Thanks, Doug.
I got one.
Yeah.
Holiday
Awesome.
Festival, December 4th, starts at 4 p.m. Tree lighting around 5:15. Should be fun.
Absolutely.
I'll be quick. I don't have much either, but I enjoyed visiting the Trammell Crow facility over on 124th today. That place is massive. When I was looking, I thought we were in the big building. We were in the smallest building, and there's another building that's like more than almost 4 times the size. I was like, wow. So it's really going to be some great employment opportunities once those facilities are filled over there. So great job to our economic development team and working with them and bringing them to Sherwood. So that's all I got.
Great. John got nothing?
Nothing for me tonight. No, thanks.
Awesome. Renee?
Library Advisory Board meets tomorrow night. The Senior Advisory Committee met last week. They're working on their SWOT analysis. The Hack Committee meets Thursday. So no, I really don't have anything. Congratulations, Chief, and Ty, you've got big shoes to fill.
Awesome. Thanks, Renee. Tim?
Yeah, just a couple things. First of all, I attended the WCCC meeting for Keith this Monday, Washington County Coordinating Committee. A lot of presentations, but one of the important things I wanted to pass along to everyone is for the MISTIP funding, which funds major infrastructure projects in Washington County, that the committee decides on the priorities for those. There's a map that they use, and if you're not on that map, your project does not have a chance of getting approved in the MISTIP process. And kudos to Julia and her staff for getting our recommendations for adds to that map. And we were able to get the new Ice Age Road that we need through the Tonquin employment area put on that map for consideration. I must say there was some considerable discussion. I don't want to say whining, but it became close to that with some of the other cities because they did not get all the requests put on the map, but we got ours, and very happy with staff and making that happen. I also wanted to mention, I'm on the Sherwood Education Foundation board, and they are full bore planning for a sip and spell this year. It'll be great to see that come back to our community after a hiatus during the pandemic. So I'm really looking forward to that, and should be a lot of fun. And then, one more announcement or one more comment. Then I had a question for Keith Campbell. Chief, I really appreciate all the hard work you've done for the city. I remember the first time we met, the first year you were here. We won't go into the details of that, but I'll just say there was no tickets issued, but we had an interesting conversation. But I really got to know you when I started working on city council back in, I guess it was late 2017 or early 2018. And I've just enjoyed working with you thoroughly. We have an amazing police department that, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, but it's a model for the rest of the state. A lot of PDs in the state look at the Sherwood Police Department is the way you do it right. And so I really appreciate all the hard work you've done and setting that up for our community. Your officers are awesome. Last month, one of them showed up on our street and just got out of the car and just talked to the community and talked to the kids, and the kids got to play with our drug dog, which was awesome, and they just had a really great time. So that doesn't happen in a lot of communities. So I really appreciate your approach, the training that you do, and the types of officers that you bring on board. It's just an awesome police department. And Ty, you do have big shoes to fill. So I will echo that comment, but you've lived in it, you've worked in it, so I'm sure you'll do a great job. So I appreciate you stepping up for that as well. So thanks again.
You're here. Tim, thanks for covering the WCCC yesterday. I know you enjoyed it, enjoyed being able to engage with our neighboring cities, with cities within our county. After that, I participated in our county chair meeting with all the mayors of the county, and that was good. We got an updated preview of what reports each city is going to get from the county on steps that they've taken in helping to address the ways of helping those that need housing, and just the massive amount of money that's now available. The challenge is now is just getting sites and getting buildings bought or built to provide supportive housing to those without housing or in need of better functional housing. So that was, anyways, a little sneak peek, but it was a good update from some county staff. This week involved for the first time in National League of Cities conference. It's all virtual, but I am involved because of as being president of the League of Oregon Cities this year. I've got stuff I have to do, which is good. It's great to hear from the leagues, other leagues, and local electeds from across the country, and how folks have a lot of similar problems. But a lot of excitement over the infrastructure bill and what that can mean for cities across the country, but then similarly the challenges that so many cities face in how national politics is bleeding into local level politics, really for the first time in most people's lives, which is frustrating and stressful for some communities as they try to deal with it, try to manage it in these weird days. What else? It is middle of November. How crazy is that? And next week is Thanksgiving. So wish everyone a safe, happy, fun. Tim?
I apologize. I had one more question for Keith Campbell. Could you, I apologize.
All right. Right ahead.
Keith, could you?
Unless we don't like the question, then we'll just ignore you and move on.
Okay, you go for that. Keith, could you talk a little bit about the kind of modification we did to the SEPA program for our businesses in town?
Yeah, I think Julia would be the right person to do it. She really was the one that had provided the
Here. That would be awesome.
So, Julia, you want to hop on and?
Sure. Yeah, basically what we considered that was an umbrella or a subset of the SEPA. We're calling it an outdoor seating permit. We didn't call it an outdoor dining permit specifically because we did notice in Old Town there are some places that actually are having some patrons wait outside, and so we just kind of wanted to make it available to everybody. And we sent notice out to all the businesses in Old Town that had received notice of the original input session. And then we also sent notice out after that, because we did that Wednesday evening. On Friday, we sent notice out to all businesses on our business license list, informing them of the program. Essentially, it provides a path to allow use of the sidewalk and on-street parking areas for outdoor seating. There are some criteria that need to be met, and it's really modeled after the Beaverton Open Air program. And I've gotten a few questions from businesses. Nobody has put in an application yet, but some excitement and happiness that we have the program, some questions about it, and we'll see how that moves forward.
Thank you, Julie. I appreciate all the hard work you and your staff put in getting that rolled out quickly so that businesses could take advantage of it this winter.
Yeah, and we also have so we've also got that up on our website, the packet materials up on our website, and like I said, we sent notice out to all the business license, anybody that has a business license that we have an email for.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Very good question. Thank you, Tim. Good to get that info, those out to folks to know. Thank you, Julia, for communicating with all the businesses that we have contact information with and through the chamber. That's great. With that, everyone have a fun, safe, enjoyable Thanksgiving next week. However you celebrate it, with family, with friends, bit of both. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe 4. If you do the Black Friday shopping, happy shopping. That's not in my wheelhouse of things I do, but have fun if you do. Oh, and Friday, the Sherwood Bowmen, they're in the quarterfinals of the state championship football team, and against Central Catholic at Hillsborough Stadium, 7 o'clock, I believe. Might have that info wrong. Just look it up. I'm sure it's on social media. I'm not on social media. So with that, we're adjourned.